So this is going to be a ranking of all Disney sequels. I've done a ranking video on this topic before, but with Moana 2 recently releasing, now is a good time to do a redux of it. Now this is just going to be regular Disney sequels, so no Pixar sequels included. Watch my recent Pixar ranking video for that one. And in case I need to clarify, no live action sequels. This will be just sequels to films in the 63 film Disney animated canon. So everything from Snow White to Moana 2. Now with Disney sequels to films in their animated canon, it's a complicated history, because we're talking about a fair amount of trash that went straight to video, to some recent sequels where more effort was put into them because of the theatrical release, and then everything in between. So needless to say, my opinions here will vary. This order will go from worst to best, so sit back and relax, and I hope you enjoy. Fox and the Hound 2 is a midquel taking place when Todd and Copper were still kids, and if you couldn't guess, the movie is a complete filler waste of time that adds nothing to the original story. The original film didn't need any filling in the blanks, and it certainly didn't need a time-wasting filler story about Copper running away to join a group of singing dogs. From the moment the story gets going here, you realize that, oh, this movie doesn't have shit to say. By the way, keep track of how many films on this list are about kids rebelling against their parents or guardians by running away and making you watch a shitty movie.
The Fox and the Hound 2.
Shake on it, shake on it.
I just gotta lump together Lady and the Tramp 2, Scramp's Adventure, and 101 Dalmatians 2, Patch's London Adventure together. These are two terrible films about kid dogs that run off to be with older, bigger dog role models. Scramp, the son of Lady and the Tramp, was just a terrible protagonist. He was just beyond annoying because of his voice and behavior. Because the film is centered around him, you get a pretty terrible experience. 101 Dalmatians 2 is a better version of Lady and the Tramp 2. It has a less bratty protagonist and of course a better villain in Cruella. But these are certainly two films I want no parts of ever rewatching.
Patch's London Adventure, rated G, now on Disney DVD and...
Atlantis Milo's Return is the first on this list of television show launch films. These are a collection of short stories that act as a pilot film for a potential TV show. In most cases, a TV show that never ended up happening, which is why these films are a pretty big waste of time. This film sees Milo reunited with the crew from the first film, going on various supernatural type adventures outside the city of Atlantis. As individual TV show episodes, these might be okay, but as an overall film, there's a whole lot to be desired here. Tarzan 2 is a midquel taking place when Tarzan was a kid. It sees a young Tarzan frustrated with not fitting in with his gorilla family, and then running away to find comfort with a new group. It's actually got pretty good animation for what it is, but the story is just so bad here. Just like The Fox and the Hound 2, if you're going to do a midquel, let it have some relevance to the original film. But given what the original film shows, we know that any midquel about Tarzan as a kid isn't going to mean shit in the grand picture.
Tarzan 2. Own it on Disney DVD June 14th.
Cinderella 2 Dreams Come True was another failed television pilot movie composed of multiple stories. The stories here are mostly not worth a shit, pretty shallow and superficial, and the film would have been complete garbage had it not been for the final story with Anastasia. It was actually a very well done story that was a sign of things to come for her in the infinitely better third film.
Cinderella 2. Dreams Come True. Premiering only on Disney DVD and video, February 2002.
Beauty and the Beast, Belle's Magical World. Oh wow, another failed television pilot movie composed of multiple stories. Although I'm a sucker for anything Beauty and the Beast and those characters, which is why I didn't hate watching this film, mainly because you still just love those characters. A midquel TV show for that film though probably would have been a bad idea, as Belle wasn't in the castle long enough to warrant a full TV show.
Gift anyone can offer. True friendship.
Beauty and the Beast, Belle's Magical World. New special edition on Disney DVD for a limited time only.
Tarzan and Jane, another compilation TV show pilot film. But this time the TV show actually happened. That Tarzan show was pretty fun, and the stories in this film are a reflection of the show. It doesn't make for a great overall movie, but for what it is, it's okay. Pocahontas 2 is among the boldest Disney sequels in how it gives a complete middle finger to the romance between her and John Smith from part 1, and has her hook up with a new white guy in this film. It's got the baseline non-quality quality found in most direct-to-DVD sequels around this time, but for what it's worth, the romance here is better than the one from her and John Smith from the first film, which ain't saying much, but it led to Pocahontas still being a good protagonist and obviously in an interesting situation going to London. And for what it's worth, I actually thought that Governor Radcliffe was actually a better villain in this film than the original.
Watch Pocahontas 2 Journey to a New World tomorrow at 8/7 Central only on Disney Channel.
Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 is all about Quasimodo finally getting some ass after Esmeralda left him in the friend zone in the first film. I didn't mind though the hookup between Quasi and Madeline in this film and the general story here. The biggest thing that holds this movie back though is its animation and look. It has that mid-90s Saturday cartoon look, which was not acceptable given how this film was released in the early 2000s when Disney sequels had a sharper look to them.
His triumphant return.
Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2.
In The Little Mermaid 2, Ariel's daughter Melody joins the ranks of bratty sequel kids that run away from home. Ariel learns that being a princess is a lot more fun when you don't have a bratty daughter who won't listen to you. Most of the movie is just flat and meh, thankfully nothing to flat out hate though. Where the movie really failed was when the villain obtained her ultimate power. And unlike Ursula, who wrecked some major havoc, her sister Morgana just made everyone bow. Scary.
I just love the sea!
In The Little Mermaid 2 Return to the Sea.
Kronk's New Groove is a decent spin-off movie focused on Kronk. It's not really great in any aspect, and the better follow-up to The Emperor's New Groove was actually the TV show The Emperor's New School, which after rewatching some of it recently was definitely better and funnier than I remembered.
I thought this was all about me. Spell my name again!
Mulan 2 was worthwhile for how it tied up the loose ends in Mulan and Chang's relationship. The movie was honestly okay, with the major what the being what it does with Mushu, going from being one of the best Disney sidekicks to essentially being the villain of the sequel.
I think I'm gonna be sick.
Mulan 2, rated G, now on Disney DVD.
Naturally, Frozen 2 has stunning animation, and the entire movie is almost worth watching for Elsa's second song, Show Yourself, by itself. But the plot and story are beyond terrible here, as it's straight to DVD quality despite its theatrical release. You get a bunch of mumbo jumbo about spirits and lost soldiers stuck in a mythical forest for decades. I mean, who the hell wrote this Jungle Book 2 is one of two sequels on this list where your reaction should be, what the f***? That went to theaters? The film though is definitely a step up in quality from the worst direct-to-video sequels because I guess they knew they were putting it out in theaters. And there's a handful of decent moments, but this just gets the movie to be okay, leaning more towards mediocre. The film gets more annoying the longer that it goes on, as there's only so many times you can listen to the bare necessities. But I guess that's better than the original songs that were made for this film, as all of the original songs here are all atrocious.
With new songs.
While technically well produced in its looks and animation, Fantasia 2000 is a misguided attempt at trying to recreate the first Fantasia, and shows that the success and charm of that movie was more of a product of its time. Trying to do that in the modern day, and especially right after the Disney Renaissance, their best era, probably wasn't the best idea.
Fantasia 2000, the IMAX experience, rated G. Now playing in IMAX theaters worldwide.
Lion King 2 Simba's Pride has a fair amount of fans that really like it. I guess I've always found the movie to be just okay. I don't know, I've always found the idea of Scar having legions of followers from the first film that we never saw or heard of to be pretty silly. It is the first straight-to-video Disney sequel to be technically pretty good when it comes to the animation, as it's not a significant drop-off from the first film. That's really saying something. Some of the songs, though, were a little too overdramatic for my liking, though.
The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, only on video.
I'm Kiara.
Return of Jafar was the first ever direct-to-video sequel Disney ever did. That would lead to a legacy of an up-and-down quality of films. Thankfully in this one, you get the returning voice cast back, with the obvious unfortunate exception being Robin Williams for Genie. But the story here is actually solid. I like the character development for Iago, and the songs are pretty good for a direct-to-video movie. The obvious thing that hampers this movie, though, is the animation. It's that crappy colored 90s TV animation that's all the more glaring when you compare it to a movie as beautiful looking as the first Aladdin. But the TV series that followed this film was pretty badass, though.
It's Disney's The Return of Jafar, rated G. I love it!
The Three Caballeros isn't an official sequel, but it basically is to Saludos Amigos, which was released in the previous year in 1943. Both films were very light on story and more about being cultural showcases. Saludos Amigos for Brazil and Three Caballeros for Mexico. The Three Caballeros execution was much better than Saludos Amigos for its iconic trio in Panchito, Jose, and Donald, the songs, and for at least having a semblance of a story, at least for a little bit. Too much of the second half of the film, though, ends up being just pure music while Donald lusts after Hispanic women, which doesn't make for the best story experience.
In Walt Disney's latest pleasure-packed full-length Technicolor feature, The Three Caballeros.
Stitch the movie, odd title, but it was the first follow-up to the original, even though chronologically it takes place after the official Lilo and Stitch 2. This film was a good setup movie for the TV show as it nicely set up the nature behind the experiments, which would define basically the entirety of the franchise after.
Cousin, Stitch the movie.
Ariel's Beginning was the last traditional direct-to-video sequel put out by Disney. The Tinkerbell movies are almost their own category. Towards the late aughts, direct-to-video sequels were showing a step up in quality, and this movie continued that as it was pretty good in a variety of categories. It nicely gave Ariel's sisters a bigger role, addressing what happened to their mother, as that opening was pretty damn good. The best thing here, though, was the animation, which just looks phenomenal by direct-to-video standards. The sharpness, the coloring, the fluidity, it just looks beautiful.
Little Mermaid, Ariel's Beginning. Discover the story you never knew.
Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch Has a Glitch was the only Lilo and Stitch sequel not to deal with the large spectacle of the other experiments, instead telling a story showcasing the friendship and bond between Lilo and Stitch, even during the most turbulent times, and an overall cute story. Like Ariel's Beginning, though, the movie has just some spectacular animation, to where you could put it side by side with the original film and there isn't a notable drop-off, if any, in quality.
Stitch has a glitch. Lilo and Stitch. Stitch has a glitch. Only on Disney DVD Fall 2005.
Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas was a solid sequel midquel, more midquel than sequel, telling a Christmas tale that occurred during Belle's time as Beast prisoner. It adds some good characters to the lineup of enchanted servants, and further showcases that Belle and Beast's relationship was anything but smooth.
Merry Christmas.
Walt Disney Pictures presents the special edition of Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas. Own it on Disney DVD and video today.
Moana 2 was a decent enough follow-up adventure. It is very much inferior to the first film in quite a few aspects, like song and story, but obviously more effort is put in there because of the theatrical release compared to the worst of direct-to-video sequels. Didn't care much for the new characters here, but I did still very much enjoy Maui and Moana, even if their character journeys weren't as strong this time around. The movie has its ups and downs, but there was a bit more here that I enjoyed than didn't enjoy. It's obviously fun and cute enough for the kids without being an hour and a half of painful for the adults.
Bring it on, Coco. Nuts.
Return to Neverland is like Jungle Book 2, where you ask, why did this go to theaters? Now, these sequels typically go sideways when they focus on the original protagonist's kids. In this case, you have Jane, the daughter of Wendy. But I've always been on Jane's side in this film, as Peter and Tinkerbell really screw her over while in Neverland. And the opening of the film shows that she has some legitimate real-world issues to deal with at the time. The movie is good enough to be tolerable and watchable. There is some magic to it. The entirety of the movie is almost worth watching alone for the ending scene with Peter and Wendy, which is just pure magic.
Peter Pan in Return to Neverland, rated G.
Be brave, lads. Don't let them see you cry.
Coming.
Bambi 2 is a midquel taking place right after Bambi's mom was killed and before he enters young adulthood. Unlike shitty useless sequels like The Fox and the Hound 2 or Tarzan 2, this is a worthwhile story that adds great development to Bambi's relationship with his father, as all of that story development was completely skipped in the original film.
Bambi 2.
What were you like when you were my age?
I was a lot like you.
Only February 7th for a limited time.
Brother Bear 2 is the only sequel on this list that I definitely prefer to the original. It's a surprisingly well-done love story that makes Kenai question what's really important to him. And the actual love interest added here, the character Nita, was a great addition for the film. This is also another movie where the animation isn't a noticeable drop-off from the first film.
Once you love someone, they stay in your heart forever.
Brother Bear 2.
Feels like a big movie.
If you don't count the Three Caballeros, The Rescuers Down Under is the first official Disney sequel, whether direct-to-video or theatrical, as part of the animated canon. It's another good adventure with Bernard and Bianca, this time in the land down under. And like the first film, you get a very underrated Disney villain, this time in the form of Percival McLeach, who gets excited as he's about to feed a little boy to crocodiles.
You get a line, I'll get a pole, matey.
And it brought to Disney a superb new form of animation that would define the rest of the Renaissance era of the 90s. I've always wished, though, that the actual ending here had more of a wrap-up, as the film ends in very lazy and underwhelming fashion.
Disney's The Rescuers Down Under, rated G.
I'm gonna lump all the theatrical Pooh sequels together, and that would be the Tigger movie, Piglet's Big Movie, Pooh's Heffalump movie, and 2011's Winnie the Pooh. The standouts here are the Tigger movie and Piglet's Big Movie, both excellent stories centered around their title characters. The Heffalump movie was pretty annoying to get through, and the 2011 film is short and sweet for what it is. Admittedly, I was too lazy to rank them all separately. But if I did go best to worst for them, I would go at number 1, the Tigger movie, 2, Piglet's Big Movie, 3, the 2011 film, and way at the bottom at number 4, Pooh's Heffalump movie.
Disney's Winnie the Pooh, rated G, July 15th.
Leroy and Stitch was the finale to the Lilo and Stitch series, if you don't count the Japanese-produced anime series, which I'll talk about after. But this film lived up to its finale billing, as you get a story that's pretty grand and epic, and brings satisfactory closure to the heroes and villains of the series. The final battle is basically the Avengers Endgame of Lilo and Stitch.
Shall name you Leroy! Leroy?
You can join the fight for the galaxy in an all-new movie, Leroy and Stitch.
Now, the Japanese-produced series undid a lot of the closure this film provided, but it was a decent series for what it was, although it wasn't better than the US-produced series. Aladdin and the King of Thieves was the ending for the Aladdin series. It's got great payoff in seeing Aladdin and Jasmine finally get married. There's a fun adventure when he meets his father, and you get Robin Williams back as Genie in this film, as it was the only time outside the original film where he came back to voice him.
Including the Genie, brought to life again by the one and only Robin Williams.
It's a kinder, gentler Genie. Look at it!
The Tinkerbell films should almost be in a category of their own, but since they're obviously prequels to Peter Pan, it felt necessary to include them in this ranking. Out of the 6 films there were 3 great ones in the original Tinkerbell film, The Great Fairy Rescue, and especially The Pirate Fairy, which has the most tie-ins to the original Peter Pan. The Lost Treasure and Secret of Wings were decent. The final film, Legend of the Neverbeast, was pretty though. It is disappointing that they never got around to doing a film where she actually meets Peter Pan, though. Ranking these films individually, I'd go 1, The Pirate Fairy, 2, the first Tinkerbell film, 3, The Great Fairy Rescue, 4, Secret of the Wings, 5, The Lost Treasure, and 6, Legend of the Neverbeast.
Tinkerbell, an all-new movie.
Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time is just whoa in so many ways. It basically takes a on the shallow, superficial elements about the original film and turns out a story that makes Cinderella into a protagonist that really has to work for her happily ever after, and shows the damage her stepmother can do with a little magic. There's just a lot to be impressed about with this film, like how it tells an infinitely more developed romance story for Cindy and the Prince, or how it gives some surprisingly effective character development for Anastasia, something that I mentioned was teased in part 2. This movie showed the merits of Disney direct-to-video sequels if done right. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, this was the second to last non-Tinkerbell direct-to-video sequel Disney did, so they didn't really get the chance to learn from the positives of this film.
Walt Disney Pictures presents Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, an all-new movie on Disney DVD February 6th.
When you read the synopsis for The Lion King 1.5, you would think whoever came up with this idea was drunk. Timon and Pumbaa showcasing the story of the Lion King from their perspective. But the movie hits the checkpoints of having great animation, effectively unusual structure, and most importantly, being hilarious and showcasing Timon and Pumbaa are as superb as protagonists as they are being the sidekicks.
There! Now this title's a knockout! No! Not literally.
Ralph Breaks the Internet is a very ambitious sequel. On its surface, it could have been Disney's version of the Emoji Movie, and that definitely would not have been a good thing. But here, there's a surprisingly mature story centered around the ups and downs of friendship that felt very Pixar-inspired, even if I didn't love some of the choices that Ralph and Vanellope made. It's not as fun as the first film, but of course that Disney princess scene basically makes the entire movie worth watching on its own. This was a sequel with real ambition and a message to say. So for that, I got awarded the title as Disney's best sequel, which I know there's a decent amount of haters out there for this film, so that may make a few folks mad. And there you have it with a ranking of all Disney sequels. Not an easy ranking video to put together, there were quite a few movies to go over for this list. Certainly a wide range of quality here, and I had to rewatch some of these movies recently for this project, and man did some of them piss me off. I think a major issue that basically all of these sequels have is that most of the time you're following a great movie, so any kind of follow-up is going to look to some degree inferior. Going direct to video certainly doesn't help, but we've seen in recent years that just because you go theatrical with your sequel doesn't guarantee you're going to top the quality of the first film. I can't imagine anyone coming out of Moana 2 and saying, "Whoa, that was better than the first film." And if they do, you should tell them to shut the f*** up. I think Moana 2's phenomenal box office success on its opening weekend is more of a reflection of how much audiences, me included, loved the original film, even if I just thought Moana 2 was still okay though. Next year though, I'll get the chance to update this video, as there's another Disney sequel that's just on the horizon. So that'll do it for this ranking video of all Disney sequels. If you somehow made it through a video where I talked about Lady and the Tramp 2, thank you for watching.